worked as a in various catering and factory work, and I would have a different personality for every job, and that was how I got through the day, was by pretending to be a completely different person because that was easier than being me. and I and I also thought everybody else was doing that. So I'd meet people and I'd be like, I wonder what their real personality's like. Like I wonder who they really are. Because I assumed everybody was doing a little bit. And to this day I find it really hard to understand sincerity because I'm like, yeah, but what do you really mean? What's going on behind that?
Episode 68. Dinosaur is autistic.
Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast. Each episode, we dive deep into autistic contributions to society and culture by introducing you to some of the world's most famous and successful autistics in history.
Before we get started, a quick disclaimer on how we use the word autistic. The purpose of this show is not to diagnose the people or characters we discuss as autistic. While some may have announced being autistic, what we're really sharing here is our observation of what is representative of autistic culture. It can sometimes be difficult for autistic people to celebrate our natural tendencies and traits due to the perception of autism as a disorder that needs to be fixed, a long history of damaging medical interventions to get autistics to fit in with mainstream culture, and protective masking skills many of us have developed to try to stay safe.
Whether you are autistic or just love someone who is, your hosts, Dr. Angela Lauria, the linguistic autistic,
and licensed psychological practitioner Matt Lowry, welcome you to take this time to be fully immersed in the language, values, traditions, norms, and identity of Autistica.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Angela, how are you?
I am great. I am curious, what do you know about TV paleontologists?
Oh man, not a whole lot, but it's a subject that I could dig. So, yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
one there. Any favorite TV paleontologists you might want to share?
As I rack my brain, I think that the only TV paleontologist like in history, aside from like any Jurassic Park spinoffs, is like Ross from Friends, and they like ruthlessly mocked him for being the only scientist on the show. So that's not a very positive
Right.
representation.
Well, we are not talking about Ross.
Oh, good,
today.
because that would be a very bummer episode.
Yes. Instead, we are going to talk about your new favorite, lovable TV paleontologist, the star and the creator of Hulu's brand new show, Dinosaur. So, in case you were worried my grammar had gone off the rails with my Dinosaur is autistic, this episode is about the TV show that many of our listeners may not have yet seen, fresh out the kitchen, hot and fresh out the kitchen. Dinosaur. It's on Hulu. If you are listening from the UK, I think you can find it on BBC.
BBC. One of my favorite networks. Oh,
you can get through this without saying the words Doctor Who. I know you can.
Oh,
we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it through.
Yeah, I hope so. We will find out because yeah, we will see. We'll find out. But yes,
your many requests for Dan Aykroyd to join us on this podcast have not been fulfilled. However, I do have for you the autistic writer, actress, podcaster, Glaswegian comic, Dinosaur co-creator, Ashley Storrie, here in the flesh.
Yay!
Join me in welcoming Ashely to Autistica. We're going to spend an hour with her.
Excellent. Hi. This is going to be really cool.
Yay! So, Ashly, you're here. First of all, please say hello to the listeners of the Autistic Culture Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, listeners of the Autistic Culture Podcast. I'm Ashley Storrie. I'm in Glasgow currently in my bedroom, surrounded by pictures of space and my Lego.
Those are the right things to be.
Yes!
So I have seen the first 6 episodes of Dinosaur. I got a little early release, but Matt actually has not. So for Matt and for the uninitiated here, would you give us a little overview of your fine little show, Dinosaur?
Dinosaur is a show about a lady called Nina who is a paleontologist. She is incredibly funny, or at least she thinks so. She loves her sister, she loves her family. Her life is pretty much how she wants it to be. And then all of a sudden, her sister announces that she's getting married to a man she's only known for 6 weeks, which is not enough time. And that throws her world into disarray. Also, Nina is autistic, but I always forget that part because I don't say it about myself when I meet people for the first time. So I keep forgetting. Also, Nina is autistic.
And Nina does say that. It's not like a secret. She's not coded autistic. She just like is autistic. Full
Yeah,
stop.
she is. And I have always been kind of open and happy to say so and never felt weird about it when I knew I was autistic. I was like, oh, well, I'm autistic now. I was lucky, not lucky, but it was good that my dad got diagnosed when I was 16. So it was something that was always part of my vocabulary.
Very good.
Ooh. And is that, did you find out after your dad? It usually goes the other way.
No,
Your
I
dad
found out
first.
through I was doing like in high school in Scotland, you do hires, which is your end of school exams, and one of the classes I took was psychology. And part of that was I got given the Baron Cohen test to read. And not many
Mm,
people know that
Jesus.
Borat's brother invented this very strange test for Asperger's that's like a questionnaire you fill out. But
You
when I
do look
read
like you have a male brain to me. Just
Yeah.
looking at you, I can see that looks like a male brain.
so but as I read this, I was like, that's dad. And my dad had struggled with his mental health for the longest time. He didn't get out of his bed for like 6 years. He was incredibly depressed. My mum went off to work and I was left as a teenager to look after him. So I was constantly searching for solutions. And when I read that list, I was like, Daddy, I think you might have Asperger's, as it was called then. And he went to the GP, and I think it was the shortest diagnosis that
Ha!
any man has ever had. He walked in, the man was wearing a tie that was a weird shape, and my dad just went, "Your tie's a weird shape. It looks like a karate belt." And
I love that
And
so
that was
much.
it. That's pretty much how Matt's diagnoses go.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's fantastic. I love that. That's so cool.
so
Wow.
from
All
that
right.
point forward, it was just part of my life. And then I realized, oh, I didn't know girls could have it. So at first I thought maybe I'm just picking up on my dad and I'm mirroring him. And I came up with so many excuses of, oh, it's just learned behavior. Then why can't I unlearn
Mm.
it? And things like that.
Interesting. And you, if I have followed your career correctly, by that point, you may have already had some special interests. Would you like to share? You have one you're sort of famous for.
Ooh.
Star Trek, Star
Oh,
Oh
Trek,
yes.
and well,
that
specifically William Shatner.
just drill down on that a little bit. What do you love about Star Trek?
I love that Gene Roddenberry created a future in which there is no money, there is no poverty, there is just love and exploring. And also, I love the notion that humans go into space and love it. Humans go into space and have their way with aliens who have no idea what hotness is on a human spectrum. So everybody's hot when they go to a new planet.
Pretty much sums it up. Fantastic. Um, I'm guessing Nina's special interest from a young age is dinosaurs. Just a guess there.
Yeah.
Do you? Let's talk a little bit more about like creating Nina. She feels like she's my best friend. So, what's she like? Why did you write her like this? How much is autobiographical, and how much is invented?
So interestingly, the process of Dinosaur is different from most other TV shows in the conception, in that there was already a pilot that Matilda Curtis had written, and I got cast in it. There was an open casting looking for an English, slightly younger actress who was neurodiverse. I was Scottish and a bit older, but my agent put me forward for it nonetheless. We filmed the pilot, nothing happened, and then they came back 2 years later and said, do you want to do the series, but you can come on and as a writer and a creator and have more creative control?
That's what happened
That's
with like Brie Larson and the Unicorn Store. That's
Oh,
very cool.
yes.
Yeah, that you get to have creative control because you understand this. What was the pilot written by someone who is autistic themselves? How does the original pilot differ from the series?
The pilot was written by Matilda, who has family. She isn't diagnosed, but she has family who are autism experts and are autistic. And she was raised with that, again, being just part of life and part of her world. Um, but I think that the difference was just really I like Nina. Everything that is Nina feels and thinks autistically are things I've felt and feel autistically. I didn't want to take any things out of other people's autism experience to put into Nina that I didn't have full
Mm.
understanding
I
of.
like that. I like
So
that.
every experience, the stimming, the overstimulation, but also being verbose and being able to talk, and she can communicate, and that was a huge hurdle for me getting diagnosed. Was I'm good at words,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's yeah,
Being hyperverbal, making eye contact, ability to have a sentence in full. Yeah, the neurotypical evaluators like you can't be autistic. So yeah,
yeah. And I was really lucky in that they brought an actual linguistic person in to part of my diagnosis process. So they had like a linguist in, and she was talking about how very weird my word choices were and how it's very interesting how I speak and the way I speak, and because words are one of my special interests. Like that's and they'd
I love
recognized
that.
that, and I was super lucky that I had doctors around me who saw that and didn't just dismiss me.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's when I do an evaluation. Language choice is one of the things that fascinates me because, again, the neurotypical people tend to play fast and loose with the language, and
Yes.
things might mean something, they might not mean something. But when we talk, we use a very idiosyncratic set of linguistics, and it's fun to watch.
Because why would you have multiple words if they all worked?
Right?
Like we need to pick the right word. And it
Yeah.
means
It's
something.
so
And pay
cool.
attention, please. Oh my god, I love
Also,
that.
I love the shape of words, and it's really
Ooh,
hard to explain to people, but there's like shapes. Words have shapes, and
yes,
I try and
yes, they do.
explain that I enjoy that word because it's like it's a hexagon, and they're like, I don't know why you would say that, but it is, and I know it is, and you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a little synesthesia-y.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with
That's
the
super
hyperconnected
fun.
brain because we get a lot of that. That's one of the things about the richness of the autistic experience that it's hard to tell people that are allistic because that's why the universe is a fun place because it gives you this internal sensory input. And it's so cool.
I heard you talking, Ashley, about some comedian that you liked, and you were saying, "I know he's nice and he loves his wife and his weans." And I maybe listened to that sentence 100 times. I'm like, "What's a wean? What is it? Is it a video game? His wife and his weans. His wife and his weans." I'm like, "Oh, that's lovely." And then I finally figured out it was wee ones.
Oh, it's a very Celtic. I think they use it in Derry Girls as well. Wains. It's just a
Weans,
word.
yeah. Wife
That
and Wayne, and I had to like slow it down. I'm like 0.75 speed. What is she saying?
now I'm
But
just trying to
yes,
work out which comedian I said loved his wife and Wains. I'm
it
like,
was
who?
the guy Adam. Is that his name? It was the guy. He did like Click. He was like a Saturday Night Live guy. He did Happy Gilmore. Who did
Adam
Happy
Sandler.
Gilmore?
Adam
Adam
Sandler
Sandler.
loves his
You
wife,
love
loves his
him.
Wains. I love him.
See?
I adore him because he seems like a nice guy.
And that's what you said.
Yeah, I
And then
did.
I had to obsess on. I probably said wife and weans like 1,000 times. It just now that's a thing my brain has to repeat over and
Let
over
us
and
know in the
over.
comments if you're engaging in ecologia as we speak and repeating wife and weans on repeat
Wife and
forever.
weans. Actually, you want to hear Ashley say? Ashley, just say it a
Please,
few
please,
times for us.
please.
Wife and Wains, wife and Wains.
See? It's going to get stuck in your head. You're going to love it. Your brain's going to just stim on that all day. I got to do a little audio stimming. That's how I roll.
We love sharing stories of autistic culture. And if you are seeing yourself in any of these stories and you're wondering if maybe you're one of us, or maybe you're already diagnosed or self-diagnosed, and you want to know if Matt can help you live your life better and be more authentically autistic, check out his website at mattlowrylpp.com. That's Matt, M-A-T-T, Lowry, L-O-W-R-Y. And then that LPP, it stands for Licensed Psychological Practitioner. So head on over to mattlowrylpp.com and learn more about working with my buddy Matt.
Okay, so let us talk about masking. I would say in this show, Nina's character she's pretty unmasked in ways I'm not used to seeing on TV. Let's talk about that and how that's different from you, especially since you were 16 before you knew you were autistic. Do you feel like you mask more? Has playing Nina changed your relationship with masking at all?
I was such a proficient masker to the point where I would take on characters, and I
Ooh.
didn't know that was part of autism. So I worked as a various catering and factory work, and I would have a different personality for every job, and that was how I got through the day, was by pretending to be a completely different person, because that was easier than being me.
Yes.
and I and I also thought everybody else was doing that, so I'd meet people and I'd be like, I wonder what their real personality's like I wonder who they really are, because I assumed everybody was doing a little bit. And to this day, I find it really hard to understand sincerity, because I'm like, yeah, but what do you really mean? What's going on behind that? So masking, I was really frightened. That was the main concern I had with masking, was when we filmed the pilot, I had been in lockdown for the longest time. I hadn't interacted with humans. I had lost all of my skills and my ability. And I spoke to Sarah Hammond, who's our executive producer. She is one of the great minds behind Fleabag. And
Oh,
I said,
oh, good.
yeah, I said, I'm really frightened that if I go here, I'm not going to be able to mask for 12 hours a day. And I don't know if I can do that. And she said, don't. We've hired an autistic person. Why would we want you to pretend to not be autistic? That would be very
Oh,
weird. We'll accommodate you. And she was like, you spend your life accommodating people. How about for this? We'll accommodate you. And in
wow.
that accommodation of, how can we make this easier for you, became, how can we make this easier for everybody in the crew, irrespective of their diagnosis or non-diagnosis or whatever. So everybody in the crew filled out the same form I filled out. Everybody in the crew had the same interactions with the access specialist. Everybody, irrespective of where they stood on any spectrum, got the same and because of that, we were an incredibly functional crew.
Wow.
It worked
Oh,
fast. We were quick. We were in tune with each other. We were on time. There was no screaming. There was no shouting. Nobody raised their voice. There was one day we had a person come in who hadn't been on the crew the whole time, and they raised their voice just a little bit, because that's commonplace on film sets. And it was like a shock. It was like, oh no, excuse me, sir, please don't raise your voice in this
it's not
environment.
how we do things
That
here.
is wonderful. Because again, the words neurodiversity affirming are thrown around like the word organic and have largely lost a lot of meaning. But that is truly neurodiversity affirming. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
and it was lovely. And I think I've done loads of work in before I was even diagnosed. I was, because of my dad, I was like, oh, I'm good at working with autistic people. I work with my dad, so I was doing like comedy workshops for varying different levels of autistic people. We had like non-verbal kids coming along and doing like physical comedy, and then we'd put on a show at the end of the year, and people would come and watch this stand-up comedy show that was all just autistic people being weird and
Great.
amazing. And I always thought that was such a. I remember somebody said to me, "Are you autistic?" in the group, and I was like, "No, no, no, I'm fine." And I realized that I was kind of like setting myself apart, but also I was like, I want to also be treated like that, and so
Yeah.
it made sense to me that everybody wants to be treated
Oh,
nicely.
like with
So
respect? Yeah.
Fancy that.
Oh, great, crazy talk. Oh my God. So there is, I don't want to give too much away about the show because everybody needs to go watch it. And if you're not subscribed to Hulu, you could do like a free trial week and there'll be plenty of time in those free 7 days to watch all the episodes until season 2 comes out. But there's one scene, it's kind of a double scene. First, you're trapped in a bathroom on a very weird first date. And then you are trapped in a dressing room in my nightmare scenario of trying on scratchy dresses.
Ooh.
Mm.
And these are 30-minute episodes, and I had to pause the recording because I was getting triggered and I was not having to be locked in a dressing room with a film crew or wearing a scratchy dress. So, how did you avoid getting triggered while falling into a bathroom and being completely humiliated?
So while I was involved in the creative process of all of the episodes, episode 3, the episode you're talking about, is my episode. That's the episode that I wrote solo.
So
And
good. It's my favorite
thank you. Thank you.
episode.
But really wanted to use my words and my time to say, how can I best express autism and what it feels like to people who maybe don't understand what it feels like.
Oh, very
And
good.
for me, being stuck in places, being in uncomfortable situations with new people, and also trying on scratchy dresses are literally the worst things in the world. How can I put that in one day to express that to somebody who maybe doesn't understand that feeling? Also, I have to give so much shout out to Ian, who edited this episode. His editing made that sense of just overstimulation and panic and dread and why can't I be good, why can't I fit in this, all he edited it so beautifully, and all of our editing team. But yeah, that episode, I loved filming it because I was knew that these are my words and these are the things I want to make people feel. And it was stressful and it was hot and it was itchy, but the overriding feeling was, I am doing a thing and I know what I'm doing. I see my end goal, and going through this to
Mm,
get to my end goal makes sense to me in the logic of my brain.
Yeah, because
mm.
I was wondering about the behind the scenes stuff of actual sensory overload. If you got like a stunt dress that looked itchy but actually felt good, or if you actually put yourself through the rigors and you effectively had to be your own autistic stunt person to go through the misery for the purpose of the art.
I went through the misery for the purpose of the art. There is
Ah,
scenes where in a bowling alley where there's a lot of noise, and that was a bad day, but also it was a good day because I was like, this is putting somebody in these shoes, and that's a good thing to understand that feeling. Even though it's only on screen for like 15 seconds, it was so loud and hot and sweaty and intense. But I think it looks better, and I think honesty and truth is the better fertile soil for storytelling. And I'm not saying I'm going to go full like De Niro and drive a taxi about and like pull my teeth out. But I do understand now that idea of living the pain so that you can make it make it feel on screen.
Matt invented autistic centered therapy, and one of the aspects of it is advocacy. So, Matt, I wonder if that feels a little bit like the advocacy work that's part of
oh,
AutCT.
it is the epitome of it because the advocacy work comes a lot from like feminist therapy because again, there's a lot of advocacy work that is crucial to feminist therapy. But for us, in order to make the world a better place for us and our kin, we must advocate for our own needs. We must advocate for the needs of others. We must be true to ourselves and get that experience out there. And this is the purest form of advocacy work to get an audience to live in your shoes, to explain how the world affects you, how the world can be different. I'm astonished that you're able to do again the forms to make people comfortable and go through all of the pain in order to accurately represent the lives of autistic people. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of people who really resonate with that. That is excellent advocacy work.
And there's also some modeling in there, like in
Yes.
that bowling alley scene. Nina actually advocates that for herself that she does not want to wear the shoes.
Ooh. Oh, God, I hate bowling shoes. Yes, absolutely. It's so gross and weird. I don't want to wear bowling shoes. I will never ever do that. I just no, 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 no. Good, good for you. Good for Nina. Well done. Thank you. It needed to be said. We need to take a stand against shoes. Yes.
It's not
Shared
necessary, just so you
shoes.
know. It's
Right.
not necessary. I've looked it up. It doesn't make any sense. It's apart from high heels, bowling alleys should have the same rules as emergency slides on airplanes.
Yes.
High heels. That's it.
I have never once worn cleats to a bowling alley. I want that to be said.
Yes,
Yes.
do not wear
No.
spiked
Yeah.
football shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yes, I am totally with you. Yes. Oh.
Well, Nina fights for it. I don't know how well it goes. You'll have to watch the episode, but she does make her stand, and that was very empowering for me to kind of see that modeled on the screen. So, um, okay, I want to talk about one of my favorite characters on the show, which is Declan, who is sort of your work husband. So Nina works at the Natural History Museum, as does Declan.
Warms my heart.
Right? What a perfect place to work. And at one point, I don't know if Declan's out, but at one point Nina says, I'm pretty sure he's autistic too, or something like that. But can you talk about that relationship? But also, do you have a Declan? Do you have someone like that in your life?
I was kind of modelled off of my relationship with my dad because having somebody else neurodiverse in my life has always been a really good thing because it's somebody that I can speak to and talk to. But the character of Declan, it was super important that we had somebody who was neurodiverse play Declan. And Jim, who plays Declan, is just the nicest man. And we had the loveliest time on set. Everything we had so much fun, and every time I see him, I'm so happy. And I think that kinship, that bond that our characters have, we instantly had off screen as well. And that was kind of the really beautiful thing. And he was late diagnosed. He's a consummate professional, been an actor his whole life. So good, so clever, but also understood the assignment because it's a lived experience. And that's, like you're saying, it's if you live it and you know it, it's not hard because you know it and you've lived it.
So that raises a question because, again, when you were talking before about prior jobs and creating a character, you as an actor have been forced to unmask and unact. That
Mm.
that is a really fascinating thing. How do you unact in a world where you've always been acting?
I have no clue. It was just so weird and so fun, and it was just such a different. It was different from anything I've ever done in my entire life. Playing Nina was like, it was like going inside rather than outside. I think
Yes.
actors do a lot of study of like, I'm going to see how this person lives. It was more going right into myself and saying, who would you be if you didn't have all of that burden of pretending?
Uh,
And Nina got diagnosed a lot younger. She's been autistic her whole life. She's not been autistic. There's even a line where she says, I tried to pretend I wasn't autistic and it wasn't fun. And
yes.
but she's known. So what would I have felt like if I hadn't spent 10 years as an adult woman at the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh trying to fit in and trying to be nice, if I could have just been my authentic self the whole time and say meh. So Nina is that kind of fan fiction of myself, of what would it have been like if I'd had that freedom.
And that's a big part of autistic identity development because we live in a world where we grow up usually with at least one autistic parent doing mirroring, the autistic parents' experiences. My son plays with lightsabers. He does what I do. He echoes me literally because he he's the echolalia. So that's uh but again, at some point the world steps in and says, "No, everything that you do is wrong." And then
Yeah.
we the ones who are fortunate are able to find someone who says, "Oh no, hey, turns out you're totally normal. You're just autistic. Just do normal autistic things."
Yeah.
That's tell me about the gap between that. How did you feel about that confrontation of the ideal versus the lived experience, the mask, the unmask, that identity? Walk us through all of it, because this is, man, this is my jam, man.
So for me, autism representation, my favorite autism representation is kind of always been comedic. So like Abed from Community
Ah,
was
yes.
always one of my favorite characters.
We
And
love Abed.
I've listened to Dan Harmon's podcasts. He's an autistic man.
Yes,
He's
yes.
he identifies as having Asperger's, and I remember the episode of his podcast when somebody said to him, "I think you might have autism," and he was like, "Oh, really? Do you think so?"
Ah!
And for me, that was always quite an honest representation, and it was funny. Also, it wasn't harrowing. And when I wanted to be Nina, I didn't want autism to be the thing that held her back, or the thing that was her foil, or the thing she had to overcome. That's just a thing that exists in this world.
Yeah.
And she's never having to like overcome autism. She's overcoming people and maybe their relationship to autism, and she's
Yes.
overcoming other people's things, but never autism itself. That's a part of her, and she loves it, and it's a part of me, and I love it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It actually makes me quite anxious, because when I got diagnosed with autism, they said, "Oh, would you like to talk about ADHD?" And I was like, "No," because if that's what's going on, I don't want it treated, because I'm pretty chill and my brain works how I like it, and I love my brain, and I'm scared that you're going to give me medicine that's going to make my brain not be how I like
Braining.
it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I love my brain, and I think I wanted Nina to be an autistic character who loves her brain. She loves
She
it.
does.
And that's the thing, because when we did an episode about Community and talked about Danny Pudi and portrayal of Abed, and talked about how Abed is one, possibly the first autistic character that is portrayed without what they call Pinocchio syndrome, where I want to be a real boy, and that's yeah.
I can't tell you how many times on set this was said, where I was like, "What is love? Who are people?" And everybody would laugh, and that was the joke we had, is like, what are feelings?
Yes, exactly. Oh man, that's fantastic.
Oh, okay. And I think also just having a brain that loves television, I'm aware of all the tropes. I'm aware of all of the bits and the Rain Man of it all, and I'm always constantly thinking, how can I push against those things that I don't particularly like? For example, my dad loves a show called The Good Doctor.
Oh God.
I hate it
with
all of my soul.
It creeps me out.
He loves it.
I don't because again, it's like this. It's like neurological blackface or something, because he's
That's
clearly
exactly
not autistic in real life. He doesn't have the because again, we talk a lot about the autistic accent on here, where we pause and words, and then sometimes we're very hyperverbal and we talk a whole bunch and we have a whole bunch of saying that we run out of breath and we have to take a breath in the middle of it. And again, he has very neurotypical rhythm of speech, and it's just slightly off because he knows he has to be weird, but he doesn't really know why.
Be weird.
He's trying.
Yeah, it's like Wednesday.
It does not land.
Yeah.
It does not land at all, and it's this uncanny valley where it's like having a puppet of, "Hello, I'm an autistic boy," or something, you know. I made a puppet for those listening but not watching. But yes,
my dad.
It was a nice.
My
puppet.
dad watches it. He sits there. And he's like, "Oh, just classic Sean." I think that's the name of the character, and he gets a lot from it. So I can't nullify his experience. Though my dad does watch a ton of terrible television. So
yeah.
He loves a procedural. He loves things that happen every episode. But yeah, I go in and I stand
autistic
there.
Man
and
loving know what to expect. Never didn't see that coming.
I was going to say that's expectation sensitivity.
Yes. But go on.
My dad loves it. But I walked in one day and it was like the kid on the screen, the doctor was having a meltdown about toilet paper, and I was like, "Daddy, what? Never in your life have you had that? What is going on?" And he was just like, "Oh, I don't like it when you leave the toilet paper the wrong way around either." And I'm like, "But you don't react like that, Papa. That's a different thing." But yeah,
Yes.
Pushing against the tropes, pushing against people's ideas of what autism is important, especially as a woman. It's a weird old
Yes.
it's a weird old place being a lady with autism, and being an adult with autism, and not a lot is kind of catered to you. And there was little bits I wanted to push against. The whole superhero of it all, that was something that I was like, stop saying that it's a
Yes.
superpower. I don't like it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
But
we just did the X-Men episode, and yes, we have certain strengths like pattern recognition, but we also have weaknesses. We are, human.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody has their own sensory profile. Everyone has, again, strengths and weaknesses, and
There's
and
a
yeah.
there's a Scottish stand-up comedian called Fern Brady who
Ah,
is
yeah,
autistic.
we've done
Yeah.
an episode about her. We love
So
Fern.
Fern and I were like friends, and I remember the day she turned around to me and was like, "Do you think I'm autistic?" And I was like, "Yes,
ha!
babe. I think that we are both autistic. I think that is we're different types of autism, but yes, we are that." But she has a very funny joke where she says, "Until Marvel make a film about a woman who screams in your face about Sylvia Plath for 3 hours, it ain't a superpower."
Yes, for sure. One of the interesting things we see Nina push back on the show is her mother's sort of infantilization of her, which I think
Oh,
is something a lot of
oh.
autistic people go through. You want to talk about that relationship and maybe anything that comes to mind?
So I find the whole infantilization thing kind of a complicated thing, because I am infantilized. I like toys, and I like Harry Potter, and I like wearing comfy jumpers, and I like all my knickknacks. So when people who aren't on the spectrum complain about shows about the spectrum being infantilized, that that I get that I get tonally when you watch something like Love on the Spectrum, the plinky plonky
Mm.
xylophone music. I get
Ah,
the
oh,
issue with that. I
yes.
understand that, but you can't then say that the people are infantilized, because they're real people living their life, and you can't just decide that that doesn't fit your idea of autism because you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so the infantilizing thing is something that I'm always kind of trying to straddle this line of, I don't want to portray another adult child who fits this trope,
Mm.
but at the same time, I am an adult child who fits this trope. So how do I kind of acknowledge but don't acknowledge it? And the conversation that I have with my mother in the bar, where she's like, how do I treat you like a grown up? And I don't know the
She's
answer
kind
to the
of
question.
chasing you around with your coat because she's
Mm,
worried you can't take care of yourself. And so she's like, how will she survive without me running around with a coat after her?
yeah.
Um, and then you go on a very nice stroll without a coat and somehow survive.
Yeah, and it's just trying to find that ground where you're having a worthwhile conversation about this thing, but also acknowledging that sometimes stereotypes are stereotypes because they're real. And
Mm.
there's that, finding that ground was difficult but rewarding.
Well, one of the stereotypes about autistic people is that we are not romantic and sexual beings. And you blow that out of the water here. You've got a love interest, and you even tell your mom you've had sex on the show, which she seems very shocked by. Matt is always surprised to find out that autistic people have sex. Matt, did you realize autistic people have sex?
As the father of one, I couldn't imagine such a thing. How does that happen?
Was that an intentional choice to get that topic in there? And yeah.
That was part of the pushing back. I think that there's level of infantilization, and I think that you can be a fully formed sexual being without also being the most emotionally mature person. We're all aware of that. We've seen Love Island. We know the score. So I think that, like, having the number of people I'd had sex with in the script was one of the most debated things in script room. How many should it be? Because I don't know
Oh,
what
wait, I've
numbers in the
spent
edit.
time on this. So it's 17 is the number. I've spent a
Yeah.
lot of time thinking about this number, and I wanted to know, and now I know you don't even know, so you're going to have to
No,
speculate
I've
with
thought
me.
about it.
Is it 17 times that she has like been
No.
penetrated, or is it 17 bodies? Is it a body count
I
or a
count it
number
as
of times I've had
17 penetrated times. That is what I count it as. I think that that's for somebody who's not been in a relationship, I think that that is a fair number of full penetrative sex. I wanted to do a bit where she specifies she's like 17
Yeah.
times, twice with hands, but once no penny, but full eye contact.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We are running out of time, and you've already been very weird in this episode, Ashley."
That's
I went
fantastic.
through the 17. I did that math. I was ready with the spreadsheet. I'm like, who were the other guys? Were they like Lee? Do any girls count? What's in there? I needed the full rundown on the 17. I'm glad you spent time on this. Good character
It's canon. It's canonical. 17 full penetrative sex times.
Excellent. Got it. You've answered my tough questions. Tough questions here.
I like that this is now the behind the scenes, so that that yeah. If you ever want to do director's commentary, we're here for you. So yeah, that's fantastic.
I also have on my list to discuss with you Wheat Puffs. Wheat Puffs is not in the United States of America. Sadly,
It's not
perhaps.
anywhere. We can't use
It's
real
not
cereal.
a real thing.
It was Sugar Puffs, which were a British cereal that is a puffed wheat coated in sugar. I think you have a Quaker Puff of a similar.
Corn
Like-
puffs. We have corn. Everything's
No,
corn in
it's-
America.
It's
Sugar
it's
snaps?
definitely a wheat.
No, that's
No,
pea.
I've
No.
definitely seen the Quaker guy on a box of these in America, but I think it might be in the health food more, like old people cereal.
Okay. Listen, I on every episode have to talk about my love of cornflakes and how I eat a bowl every morning at the exact same time.
Brought to you by Kellogg's.
Yes,
Pay us money.
Or Quaker. Or Quaker could pay
We'll
us.
take your money,
we
too.
Could launch Wheat Puffs. When Dinosaur is a viral hit and everyone in the world is watching it and they want to launch Wheat Puffs with Ashley's face on the cover, we will take those sponsorships here,
Happily do it.
So, and you can get the big celebrity payoff there. So, but let's talk about safe foods, Ashley. Do you have any favorite foods, safe foods, same foods, anything you'd like to share about food?
I am a food weirdo. I am, again, maybe not typically in the autism behavior of food, and that I like to try everything once, and I will make myself sick doing it.
You're a food stimmer.
To the point. Yeah, but I used to lick things that weren't supposed to be licked when I was a kid, and I used to do it whenever I was in somewhere really important. So I've licked the Great Wall of China. I've licked Jimi Hendrix's guitar. And again, this is all pre-diagnosis, so I thought I had to do this so sneakily. This need to say I've licked it, and it was it was such a compulsion of tasting history that I had to do.
Oh my God! Yes. Please say that this makes it into an episode, because
Not yet.
God, yeah, I must sample the Great Wall of China. Yes, that is such an autistic sense. I'm convinced that James Cameron is one of us, and like the T-1000 in Terminator 2 needs to absorb things in order to sense. And there's this scene where he's going around John's room and licking everything, and it's like that is the most autistic thing ever, because it's acquiring as much sensory data as possible. And yes, when else are you going to be at the Great Wall of China? Of course you have to lick it. Why would you not?
When autistic people find a special interest, they go deep and have a lot of knowledge, even if they don't have that formal education background to go with it. If you want to capture your spin in a book, check out Angela's work at differencepress.com, differencepress.com, and find out more about becoming an author and establishing your credibility with a book.
Yeah. So food-wise, I am always of the same thought of I need to try this. I need to know. I can't not know what this tastes and feels like, or I'm going to explode. So I love trying food, but when it comes to just daily eating, I have little compartmentalized boxes, and I make myself little untouching bento boxes, which bring me great joy. And I have a crunchy food, a soft food, a wet food, and a dry food, and that's how I roll. And I really
almost spit out the coffee. Oh my God! Yes,
that is perfect. Why have I not thought about that? Crunchy, wet, dry. What's the other one? Crunchy, wet, dry.
I'd like something also temperature changes, like a hot thing versus a cold thing is always a good situation. And then I just sit and pick at that, and when I go places, people look at me funny because I'm like, I need to make everything into little piles so I can enjoy it thoroughly.
A sensory friendly bento box. Oh my god, that's so cool. Yes.
Mm,
Ah.
feeling it. Feeling it. Um, I want you. The show has so many, especially for autistic people, and especially for diagnosed autistic people, are just like kind of aware of the conversation. There are a million little Easter eggs. There's so many moments. But one of my favorites is you're at the bachelorette party, which is called a hen do, I guess, in Glasgow, and you have a maid of honor sash, but it says maid of dishonor. All those little moments, was that collaborative? Was that just like the props person? Like, how did all those, there were so many little things like that that were so on point.
We had in terms of the writing process, Matilda and I sat in a room and went beat for beat through every episode of the series, and I am tiny focused, so she would have an idea of a scene and I'd be like, oh, let's put this tiny detail in this bit of script because one person will enjoy that. And there was a lot of what I like to call glass slipper jokes, that are jokes that maybe only fit one foot, but
Mm.
that one person is going to feel like Cinderella when they see that joke, because that's my favorite thing about TV, is when I see a hidden joke that I know is just for me. And I think I coined this phrase, glass slipper jokes. That's what I've put in.
I like that term. I will use it from now on because I was having a conversation yesterday about, mainstream and everything is just kind of playing to the greatest common denominator in order for the almighty dollar. But the best stuff is the stuff that when it hits square right between the eyes. And that's what makes me love something, because it bores deep into my brain. It's like, how did you see me so well? So that,
Yeah.
yes, that is
Mm.
fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, so much of what's magical about this show is just feeling so seen. And it's just such a gift. And I know I've already said this, but to our listeners, this is going to be worth subscribing to Hulu if you need to subscribe, because Dinosaur was made for you. There will be a glass slipper joke in there for you. I'm sure of it. So, can you share with us maybe one favorite memory, either from making the show or writing the show? What stands out as something we wouldn't know from watching it that was special for you?
I just also have to say we had an amazing props department. They were phenomenal and they found some really fun, weird stuff. Also just all of the art in the background, like the drawings of us and the photographs and the care and attention to detail and those little things in the background that were so important, like a really shonky drawing of me that clearly Evie had done when we were kids, that's kind of ugly, but it's also beloved because it's a drawing of me, and all those little tiny details in the background, which you'll see for a millisecond, but you'll know, oh, that creates and builds this world. So that was happiness, was walking into the house for the first time and seeing these props the art department had created our lives out of
Mm.
drawings and photographs and little knickknacks and a little shell that's sitting on the wall, and where did Nina find that, and how did she, was that part of our journey to becoming a paleontologist? All of those little tiny spronkles are so happy. But my favorite memory on set is I desperately want to be a policewoman in television.
Okay.
I love Law and Order. If Dick Wolf is listening to this, I know that you're a fan of podcasts about autism, Dick Wolf. I'd like to be the lady who finds a dead body at the beginning of an episode and then go away. That's all I want to do. Please and thank you.
Please
Mainly
make it happen,
because
Dick Wolf. Please.
I'm not going to tell my dad because he doesn't watch anything I'm in because he finds it too uncomfortable to watch me pretending. But that's like how I'll trick him, because he watches every
He'll
episode of
just
Law and
be
Order.
watching it, and
Yeah.
then he'll be like, "That's my girl."
Yeah. And I'll be like, made you watch. But one of my happiest, not happiest, there was an incident where a crime had been committed on the street near where we were filming, and somebody had stolen a car, got in it, and then crashed it immediately. Nobody was injured, nobody was hurt, but the two guys got out of the car and started running, and one of them ran near me, and I'm in full costume in this park with a camera crew, and I'm mic'd up, and I've got my like Nina bag and my Nina jacket and my lanyard, and I just start running after this criminal. Like, I'm gonna arrest them myself. I don't know why, but
Justice
I was just like,
sensitivity. Yes.
this is your chance, Ashley. You can take down this bad guy. There's like an AD, a second AD, a third AD all trailing behind me, like, stop. And I was like, no, stop that man. He's a violent criminal. Um,
I'm
I
making a
didn't
citizen's arrest.
I didn't catch him, thank goodness, because what would I have
Shocker.
done? Just wrestled him. And I had to have a. They were like, we didn't know that this was one of the things we'd have to say to you. But if there is a crime in the vicinity of filming, please try not to run towards it.
Okay, yes, that did not make it into the show. So that was nice. That was a nice morsel. How long did you film? How long was the filming?
It was supposed to be about 6 weeks. It ended up being somewhere in the vicinity of 7.5 weeks plus extra days, just because at the beginning we had a couple of cases of COVID and we were really COVID sensitive. We were really aware. My mum was going through chemotherapy at the time, so I couldn't. I had to isolate from her if anybody had COVID. So everybody was super conscientious. Also, it's just we didn't want the crew coming down sick, so we caught it really early every time. So there was like an actor had COVID, so 2 days of filming got lost, or one person had COVID, so we lost a day or 3 days of filming while we rescheduled to film other stuff in its place. Instead of just stopping, we just rearranged stuff. So interestingly, the scene where I talked to my mum was filmed much later than the rest of the episode. And because it was filmed much later and we'd done more stuff, it informed how that conversation took place. And that's why it changed so much, was because I'd then been living as Nina for like 7 weeks at this point, and I understood better what I wanted to say in that moment. So it was a godsend in
That kind of worked
retrospect.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, can we hear it for the world's continuity editors? Because I had no idea. And I'm always looking for changes in costume or hair or whatever. And I did not pick up on that.
Well, it's mainly just I think I'd lost like 10 pounds between filming it, so I'm slightly thinner when I come out the toilet.
That's a powerful toilet.
I will now be, yes, exactly. I'm going to look for that toilet. Share with us a little bit, because your Nina is very Glasgow centric, and you obviously live there. What do you love about Glasgow? What do we need to know about Glasgow?
It's a beautiful, rambunctious, historical, grimy, stunning, everything city. It's full of people with great senses of humor and who want to tell you all of their stories, all of their business. It's a magical place. I love it. I'd never ever felt that I wanted to leave it. In fact, one of the things that has informed my career was I was at a writing seminar thing, and there's a big Scottish TV writer who is a great creator, but he left Scotland, and he told this story about how he had got funding from BBC Scotland to go and learn a new skill in London, but instead of learning the skill, he used that money to make contacts, so he never had to come back to Scotland. And I was so affronted. I was so annoyed by this that I was like, I'm going to do the opposite. And it made me so angry, because I love Glasgow, and I'm like, but why would you not love it here? It's magical and it smells like chips and biscuits, and it's the best place in the world.
I mean, chips and biscuits are a yes for both Matt and I.
Honestly, I've always wanted to go, and Angela and I have had a conversation in the past, because my last name is Lowry, Lowry. Her last name is Lauria, and spelled on the screen, and it's both root words come from Scotland. So Lowry, fox like. So yeah, our both of our roots come from Scotland. So I really, really want to go there sometime, because it's being autistic is part of my heritage, but according to the family tree, so is being Scottish. So I'm very, very impressed with that.
I think that, sorry, in Glasgow, being quite forthright and being blunt are character traits that we associate with being a Glaswegian. So I think there's a lot of probably undiagnosed autistic people who just think it's their Scottishness and don't know.
I believe Peter Capaldi falls into that category, but yes.
Yeah. I knew you'd get it in there. I
tried.
Get it in there. Look at you.
I made it.
Doctor Who. One of
Oh,
my
yes.
friends, my friend Bethany Black, she's autistic. She's in an episode of Doctor Who.
Ooh, which one? Oh, we'll have to
I
look
don't
out.
know. I'm going to look it up.
IMDb.
Listen, we are excited for you to be an episode as a policewoman.
Yes,
Really,
yes.
we're just
Oh my
rooting
God.
for you to get policewoman roles.
Yes.
And
I
Shooty
will-
Gatwa, who's our new Doctor Who, also Scottish. We love him
Yes.
very much. We love you, Shooty.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot wait for the new season. It's going to be
Sometimes
so
without
cool.
pants.
Yes.
Sometimes without pants. That's how
I met
like the
him
best.
so briefly and with his family at the Scottish BAFTAs, and they were all so lovely and so nice.
He
Was he wearing
seems
pants
delightful.
when you met him, though? He does seem delightful.
He just smells so good. Like I've never, and because I love like nice smells, that I had to stop myself from just being like.
So good.
Also, I didn't lick him in case
I was
anybody's
gonna-
wondering.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
what does the
Glad we
doctor taste like?
clarified that.
Yeah.
We would want to know. We would need to have you back for that. One of my autistic special interests is the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And for 10 years, I went every year. I would go to 3 to 5 shows a day, and then I would build scrapbooks. I don't know, it was before the internet, but I would build scrapbooks and review every single show I went to just for myself. It was a newspaper of one. I know this is a place near and dear to you. Tell me or maybe not near and dear, but definitely near. Tell me about your Fringe experience, and do you plan to go back this year? Do you have anything we should be on the lookout for at the Fringe?
To backtrack slightly, my friend Bethany Black was in the episode Sleep No More as
Ooh.
474.
Oh, that's a good one.
We know
Yeah.
that episode.
Yes.
She's
Ooh.
very cool. She's also autistic. You should look her up. She's ace. Anyway, back what your question, the Edinburgh Fringe, right? I have been doing the Edinburgh Festival Fringe since I was 11 years old. My mother's a stand-up comedian. I would get dragged there every year. When I was 12, I started my own flyering company, so I would
Brilliant.
get paid
I
by
would have hired you.
comedians. I would get paid by
Mhm.
comedians to stand on the street, and because it worked for my mum of come and see my mum, I would just pretend that they were my parents, and it would sell good. So I would just comedians would hire me to pretend to be their child to stand on the street and say, "Hi, do you want to come see my dad? He's a stand-up comedian."
It's the best thing I ever heard in my life. Okay.
So I would come away from the Fringe. My mum would be like bankrupt because it's a completely unfeasible way of being a comedian. It's so expensive. I would come away with like hundreds of pounds because I had been booked solid for the entire of August. I did my first one woman show when I was 13. I have done every Fringe up until COVID. I had done every single Fringe from childhood through. If you've never been, it's a wondrous place. I have that familiarity breeds contempt thing where I kind of hate it because to me it's the place where I had to pretend to be normal the most and the place where I was forced into a lot of conversations that I didn't want to have.
Yeah.
I was my mum's sort of PA, assistant, PR, everything she needed I had to be because this was her dream, and facilitating her dream was a big part of our lives so that she could be a stand-up comedian. And you know, she's a working class Scottish woman. That wasn't going to be an easy feat. So everything was about the Fringe. Our year was built around the Fringe, and to me it's a lot of places where I had to have like my mum would be like, "That's the guy from Conan O'Brien over there, go speak to the Conan O'Brien booker," and I'd be like, "Hi, my mum's making me talk to you, I have nothing to say." Like there was days where I just couldn't even do it, and he would laugh and be like, "That's fine, don't worry about it. What's your favorite kind of food?" I'd be like, "Fish." "Okay, bye." But it was just a lot of that, a lot of the same conversations, and not being able to mask my annoyance at having the same conversation over and over and over again, which is something I don't do well with.
Yeah.
I don't do well with
We don't
repeating.
love the small talk.
Yeah.
That's not for us.
It's not even small talk. It's just like, you know, when you've got a business or logistics and it's like, why has this thing happened? And then everybody asks you, why has this thing happened? And it's like, ask the first person who I told.
Yeah,
Stop asking me.
I have said that information. It is on record. You didn't do your research. Yes.
Yeah, that's the Fringe for me is a month of that, of having the same conversations with people about ticket sales and stars and who's reviewing
Venues
them
and yeah. So will you go back or are you done? Have you reached the end of your Fringe journey?
my agent's going to hate me, but if I go back, I'm doing the free fringe again because I love the free fringe. I think it's an amazing thing. I think it's exactly what the fringe should be. The last the last like 6 one woman shows I did free. I made money off them because people will put money in your bucket, but cut out the middleman, cut out the ticketing services, cut out the people who profit off of folks' dreams in the most sinister way. So anything that can, again, justice seeking story,
Yes.
anything that can cut out the villains, I'll do. And I love the free festival. I love that accessibility to anybody, that you don't have to be rich. Being in Edinburgh is already expensive. It's already so expensive just to come to the city for that day for food and drink and transport
Right.
and taxis. I don't want to add to that. And so if you've got money, you'll give me it. And if you don't, you don't.
Yep. What else should we look for I know everyone should watch Dinosaur on Hulu or BBC. What else should we be looking for that you've got coming out, Ashley?
If you are a fan of British pastoral crime drama,
Yes.
the Midsummer Murder show, I am doing the official podcast for that with
Really?
Nikki Chapman, which is out. I do quizzes with people all over the world. Lots of American listeners got in touch to be quizzed by me about Midsummer Murders. Are you a
Wow.
fan, Matt?
Neat. I I
We
I
love that. So that's BBC
that's
Radio
so cool.
Scotland.
No, that's a
That's not. That's a
that's
podcast just on
the
any
internet.
podcast. Yeah, any
Yeah,
podcast. Midsummer Murders podcast.
it's the
Cheers
Midsummer
to you.
Murder Mayhem
That's so
Mayhem
cool.
podcast.
Midsummer Murders Mayhem podcast.
Wow.
So people can find you on that. Are you still doing BBC Radio Scotland?
Yep, every Friday night I am live on BBC Radio Scotland. You can listen from anywhere in the world. We play music, we talk, we have a lovely community. We've got listeners in Arizona and Colorado and New York and
Every 3 minutes you can hear Ashley give a phone number where you can call her, so you can talk to her too. I
get in
was
touch via
ready to
text
WhatsApp you.
80295.
I know. I was ready. I was like, I got it. I prepared, and now I'm going to text you on WhatsApp. Super awesome. Last thing, let us talk about your Harry Potter life. Where can people find your wild viral Harry Potter parody that I think got you maybe the most
What?
views of everything you've done?
What?
Yes.
Like
Would you like to share
38
with Matt?
million views or
Oh my
something like
god.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love Harry Potter.
She's wearing a Hogwarts t-shirt or sweatshirt, maybe.
I've got a Lego owl behind me. I love Harry Potter. I spent lockdown writing what I worked out through word count was 2 War and Pieces of a Harry Potter fan fiction where they're on
That's
Love
about
Island.
1,400 pages.
This is
so
the way.
over 1,000 pages of Harry Potter fan fiction.
Harry Potter Love Island fan fiction that nobody will ever read.
Hot damn! Hot damn!
Oh no, it sounds naughty. It sounds naughty.
It's so not. That's the worst part. Nobody has sex.
No.
It's just a lot of like logistics of how a camera would work in a high magical environment.
Okay, so we can
fan
find
fiction
that.
about technicalities of the filmmaking industry in the magical world. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Oh yeah. Oh god, we gotta get that. Oh my god, that needs to be published yesterday. Oh, is it out? Can we download it? Where is this?
Nobody can.
Show notes?
It's in a secret little file in my folder, labeled something else just in case I die and people go looking for it.
Great.
But yeah, there's a video online. There's a video online called "If Harry Potter Was Scottish." It was my break into like the consciousness of people. I don't know. Nobody knows it's me.
But I tried to find it and I failed. This was my only thing. I tried to stalk you. I went to TikTok. There's nothing good happening there. You're not a TikTok girl.
I sold it.
What's happening?
I sold it when it first came out. I sold it to a company called Lad Bible, so it is somewhere on their Facebook.
Oh, fascinating.
And
I like that you sold it though. That's interesting. I didn't know that was possible. So now they get paid on those views, but they paid you, so you got your money.
Yeah, I did that from the get-go. I didn't know other people weren't doing that. People are like, why aren't you building a YouTube channel? And I was like, because I can sell short videos to companies who need content, and I don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to do well, and they have a bigger platform, so I don't have to build an audience.
So
Well
that's
done.
brilliant. I've
Logical.
never heard anyone talk about that, but I still made it hard for me to figure out where people should follow you. So let's wrap this up. Please give me something that our listeners can do other than just watching Dinosaur. Where can people follow you? How do we join your fan club? Ashley, we love you and we're so grateful for your work. So give me a link.
Thank you. I'm Ashley Storrie on Instagram and Facebook. I'm also on Threads, but I never post there. So,
No, she's terrible at social media. It's almost like she's autistic or something.
I'm there with you.
All right. Well, Matt is also viral in social media without having an account. So
or understanding the
two
basic workings of it. So yeah, I went on. I was on Instagram last night. Apparently, I don't know how to work Instagram, so I took a screenshot and posted it on Facebook because I have absolutely no idea how social media works. So yes.
Well, that is my favorite thing about both of you. Viral on social media without even having accounts. Impossible to build a parasocial relationship with either of you. You make it very difficult. We're just going to have to watch and consume your art, Ashley, but you've made fans for life over here at the Autistic Culture Podcast. Thank you so much for being our guest and for being with us today.
thank you for having me, guys. This was so much fun.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast.
If you like this show, you can help other people find it by taking a few minutes to rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
You can find out more about writing your book with me at differencepress.com. That's difference, DIFFERENCE, press, PRESS.com.
Or getting a psychological evaluation or consult with me at www.mattlowrylpp.com. That's MATT, Matt Lowry, LOWRY, LPP, as in licensed psychological practitioner.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember,
no one ever changed the world by being like everyone else.
special thanks to our content manager, River Robbins, and Aaron Stoner, our producer, for making us look and sound good.